Hello, and good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I am Assata Michelle, and this is Ascending with Assata. So, over the past probably at least a few months or so, definitely during COVID, I'm not sure if it's the extent of the entire time, but definitely since this pandemic has been going on, there have been times when I have absolutely not been okay. And during those times when I have not been okay, I tend to isolate even more and self assess and go through all of my reflections and revelations of myself. And so I'm typically that way anyway, introvert by nature, but this has even more compounded that going in. And so in going in, I have begun to evaluate and reevaluate who actually is on my squad and who are my goal friends and things of the sort, things that I have spoken about in prior episodes. And so one of the things that occurred to me during this time, and this one as of most recently, last week, I was out and about with my mom and my daughter doing some errands. Of course, one of those errands is at Lowe's, because if you know anything about my mom, for whatever reason, she has to go to Lowe's 2 to 3 times a week. But that's another episode. And so we were out and about, and my girlfriend called me. Actually, my best friend called, and she was needing to pick something up from my home. So go ahead, of course, she can come in and get what she needs. And so she did. And when I got back, it wasn't until later on into the evening that I would go into my office to shut my office down, where I saw that she left something for me. In fact, it was this shirt that she left for me. Black Lives Matters, say their name. She makes some dope shirts. And so she left a t-shirt for me on my desk. And I just stood there and I had a moment. And the moment wasn't because of the shirt. Yes, she makes wonderful shirts. It wasn't about the shirt. It was about how every time, and as a person who works in social work and different areas, that you learn you're not supposed to use all inclusive words, every, never, all, but this is so accurate for this. Every time she and I have a conversation or we see each other, she deposits something into my life. And when I say deposit, I am not talking about a physical thing necessarily. I'm talking about I always leave from her presence with something, whether it's a word of encouragement, whether it's an insight, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a bag, whatever it is, I always leave from her presence with a deposit. And there are a couple of people like that in my life who, when there's an exchange that takes place, there's reciprocity, as I like to call it. There is not one person. There is not this uneven relationship that happens. And so for me, as I'm redefining some things and indeed finding some things, I understand that in order to have a mutually beneficial exchange with someone, there has to be reciprocity in the relationship. And that, as like with an account, a bank account, one is not always making deposits, and not being deposited into. Conversely, one is not always having something withdrawn. And that's what I began to feel like. People are constantly withdrawing. And I was just bankrupt at the end of the day, just like I don't have another thing else to give. And so when you identify these relationships that have reciprocity, really honor and make sure that you continue to do the exchange that takes place. I remember when I had my first checking account, probably about 19. I was young, first marriage, very young, and I had a checking account. And often that checking account is overdrawn because I didn't know you have to balance, you have to make sure there's money there. You can't write checks without their money being in the account. And so it's the same thing. You can't give and give and give and pour out of yourself without nobody depositing back into you. And so today, my challenge for you is to think about your relationships. And of course, there are different types of relationships. There are indeed relationships where your position is to do all the pouring into, right? So there's three levels. You have persons that you are the pitcher and you're pouring into. You have relationships that you're the same on the same level, and then you have relationships where people are pouring into you. So there are three different sets, in my opinion, of relationships. So I'm not talking about the ones where you are supposed to be the pitcher and pouring in, but you also need a pitcher that's pouring into you, and you need reciprocity of exchange. And so today my challenge is for you to discover the levels of your relationships and to assure that you are okay. And if you're not okay, it's okay to say that you're not okay. And I just wouldn't say it. I just was like, I got to figure this out. People are looking to me for answers, and but I'm no good, or I am only as good to somebody else as I am to myself. I'm going to say it again. I am only good to another as I am to myself. And so that requires self-care. That requires self-reflection. And sometimes that requires cutting some things, cutting the fat, cutting the drainers in your life, or changing or establishing new boundaries, because you are allowed to change your boundaries, or you are allowed to establish boundaries in the cases where one didn't exist before, or they haven't existed before. And so thinking about, if you just think about a bank account, checking account specifically, where you're writing checks, you have to have enough to make sure that that check doesn't bounce, because the cost of a bounce check is a lot of money. I don't even know how much it is anymore, because I don't do that anymore, thank God. But there is a cost to it, just as there is a cost for being in perpetual relationships in which you are not getting poured back into. And so today I challenge you to really think about your relationships, and I'm talking about your squad relationships, your goal friend relationships, not the others, but this one particularly. Is your squad still your squad? Do they still deserve that floor chair seats in your life? Because if there's not an exchange taking place, then I submit to you that perhaps the seating needs to change and go up a little higher, so that you are not constantly depleted of all that you have and all of your purpose and all that you're supposed to do. Because when you're weary, you can't move. You're just tired, emotionally laden. And when you're an empath, as I am, it's exacerbated. So just think about your exchanges that you're having with folk, and what that is for you, and how you maybe need to change dynamics within relationships, so that you are getting replenished, so that there's an exchange taking place. Thank you all so much for watching. I am Assata Michelle. This is Ascending with Assata. Please remember to use your voice in protesting. Use your voice in voting. Use your voice in allyship if you're not a person of color. Don't be an ally. Be an allyship, which actually means you're doing some work. Use your voice to speak about injustice. Yes, things continue to happen to Black and brown persons. So we need each person's voice in the way you use your voice, and in the way you were designed to use your voice. Write letters, make phone calls, whatever that is. Please use your voice for the change of this place that we are currently living in, the United States of America. Use your voice. Please like and share and subscribe. This is Assata Michelle. with Ascending with Assata. Have a good day.